Krishna prastaya bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. We're going to continue talking about Yoga Maya, and today especially we're going to talk about Yoga Maya's position in the Leela, in the Leelas of Krishna. So it's going to be a lot of absorption in Leela discussion. You've earned the right to hear about the intimate Leelas after hearing so many classes on Yoga Maya. So that's what we're doing. Hare Krishna. It should be full of nectar, for which we're always anxious, and we'll have kirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare. It's kind of high for early in the morning. Hare Krishna. Let's go down. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Let's go lower. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namo, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namo. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Gautamaya Sayam Rupa Gautamaya Padantika. Every word's a song, every step's a dance, and every morning's cold in Alachua. in February, in January. Right there in the Shastra. Every word's a dance. Every word's a song. Every step's a dance. And every morning in January is cold in Alachua. It's right there in the Shastra. Hare Krishna. So we are going to begin reading. We're getting into some deeper stuff now. Are you ready for deeper stuff? We're going to be reading from the Brahma Samhita, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's translation, commentary. You may not understand everything. That's okay. Part of the process of advancing in Krishna consciousness is to understand that you don't understand everything. So if you ever don't understand something, it's just a reminder to you that spiritual world's very big, very vast, very deep, very profound, and I don't understand it all. Correct? Translation. This is, if you're following this, if Nadia's here, this is page 40, bottom of page 45. Right below the song of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. No, it's page 46. So we're not beginning with Brahma Samhita, we are beginning with Jivadharma by Bhaktivinoda. Jivadharma was a book which Bhaktivinoda wrote to explain everything about Krishna consciousness. So the book is amazing, actually. Excuse me. Jivadharma, it is an amazing book. The Dharma of the soul, of the jiva. Raghunath Das Babaji says, as a question is being asked, and we're just getting the answer. She is known as Yoga Maya, an expansion of the Chit Shakti, and is the fountainhead of the transformations of various transcendental potencies. When she is in the spiritual world, she asserts her position as non-different from the Sarup Shakti. However, when she expands down to the material world, she becomes Maya Devi, the embodiment of the Maya Shakti of the mundane sphere. Therefore, Maya Shakti of the material world is but a transformation of the Yoga Maya Shakti of the spiritual world. And Maya Devi, also known as Durga in the material sphere, is an expanded maidservant of Durga Devi, the Yoga Maya of Gokula. So we've heard this. But the reason I put this in there is I was thinking, just as Durga is an expansion of Yoga Maya, lust is, you could say, an expansion of love. We say perverted reflection. An external feature of love is lust, or hatred, or envy. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the external world of Maya, but our consciousness doesn't have to be in the external world. So even though physically we're in the external world, we can live under the protection of Yoga Maya, just as we have a material body, but it doesn't mean we become slaves. We have to become slaves of lust. We can become slaves of love. Transform the lust back into love. So Yoga Maya, Mahamaya, this shift is going on. But any position, anywhere in the creation, you can be in one or the other. That's always possible. It's a state of consciousness. So Jivadharma goes on to explain, as Yoga Maya in the transcendental realm, she is the support and enhancer of the transcendental pastimes of Sri Krishna. Therefore, she is known as Krishna Lila Poshana Shakti. In the spiritual abode, the Parakiya Bhav, the mood of paramourship, exhibited by the gopis in order to fuel the transcendental desire of Sri Krishna for amorous dalliance is actually composed by Yoga Maya. It is important to understand Srimad Bhagavatam 10.29.1, which describes the Rasa Lila pastimes of Krishna. So here we're learning, I think we learned before, Yoga Maya is responsible for creating this illusion that the gopis are married and then Krishna can dance with married women. She's responsible for that. It's all her fault. No, she's doing it because Krishna wants it. So we'll read 10.29.1, which explains this. Sri Badarayani said, Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in all potencies. Yet, upon seeing those autumn nights scented with blossoming jasmine flowers, he turned his mind toward loving affairs. To fulfill his purposes, he employed his internal potency, Yoga Maya. Okay, Yoga Maya, you know what I want to do. Can you arrange it? Continues, this purport continues, or Jivadharma continues. This verse indicates that Sri Krishna decided to enact the Rasa Lila pastimes under the supervision of his Yoga Maya potency. The Sarup Shakti undertakes many activities in the arena of Chid Vilas, transcendental pastimes, which ostensibly are performed unknowingly in ajnana, ignorance, but really are not. In order to nurture the Rasa Lila pastimes, these seemingly unwitting acts are instigated by Yoga Maya. So what are these acts he's referring to that are seemingly unknowingly going on? It's the illusion that the gopis were married. They actually had husbands, but they weren't actually married to them. It just appeared like they were. And when they would go out to the Rasa Lila, they would leave a body there, a material body that their husbands would think was them and that they hadn't gone. And this is all being enacted by Yoga Maya, so the gopis. So Krishna could dance with another man's wife, so-called wife. Why? Because Krishna enjoys that. And so Yoga Maya's position, as is our position, is to arrange for Krishna's enjoyment. And, you might say, well, that's not really, I don't think that's a good example. He shouldn't have done that. It's not for us to say that. Our position is we facilitate Krishna's enjoyment. And it's for him to say what's right and wrong, like we know, like we're going to instruct him. I don't think so. Not a good idea. So, as we've discussed before, Yoga Maya understands Krishna's position, and she knows what he wants, and she knows what to do to arrange for what he wants. So we're going to read a little more. I think it's explained in the next paragraph. Yeah, it's explained in the next paragraph. This is we're continuing to read from Jivadharma. It's a different section, but it continues the thought of this last section. The Braja gopis who maintain the abhiman of being purodha become wives of gopas after a contrived marriage has been arranged by Yoga Maya. In other words, the Braja gopis maintain this semblance of being married after this fake marriage is arranged by Yoga Maya. However, they never consummate their marriages with their individual husbands. When the gopis are away from their homes on a lover's rendezvous with Krishna, again Yoga Maya creates their exact replicas to be present in their houses. When the husband returns and sees his wife in the house, he considers, my wife is certainly here at home. Thus, he can never develop envy towards Krishna. So we had discussed this. I don't know if you remember this. But the Braja gopis never have any kind of relationship with men. There are actually other gopis there who became the mothers of the children. But to create this Leela for Krishna's pleasure, because, as we said, Krishna enjoys being with women who are married. It's more exciting, actually. Excuse me, are you married? Oh, great. You want to go out tonight? Excuse me, you're married? No, forget you. So Krishna likes married women. And of course, those women like Krishna. So Yogamaya creates some kind of pretense like they were married, because then Krishna is thinking, oh, I'm dancing with married women. Okay, this is high stuff, but uh, don't try to look at it from any material perspective, because this is not material, and you'll never understand it if you're trying to like analyze it according to moral principles of this world. If you analyze it according to what gives Krishna pleasure, then you'll understand it. If you're having trouble figuring out why Krishna would get pleasure from dancing with other men's wives, well, just keep thinking. You'll figure it out. But ultimately, it's giving real pleasure to those wives, to those gopis. Krishna is never selfish, and it looks like he's selfish. But everything Krishna does, he does to enhance the love and relationship with his devotees and with us, so we can hear about these things. And if anyone has a right to dance with other men's wives, it's him, not you. Got that? Do you get that? Yeah. So don't try this at home, okay? Krishna can do it. Don't try it at home. It's not for you, it's for him. And you think, well, he did it. It's not moral. He shouldn't have done it. No, he's doing it to show you that he can do it and you can't do it. That's one of the reasons he does it. So in Krishna, people think, well, Krishna did it, so I can do it. No, the reason he does it is to show you that you can't do it. All right, you want to do it? Lift Govardhan Hill first. Then you can do it. But if you can't lift Govardhan Hill on your pinky for 7 days, then don't try to imitate Krishna. Well, I wouldn't recommend imitating him even if you could. But sometimes that example is given. He's God. He can do these things. So we think it's immoral. But actually, he's doing this so that we don't become immoral, because we're the ones who want to dance with all the other men's wives. It's not like Krishna has some, problem controlling himself. No, we have the problem controlling ourselves. But he does it to show us and say, hey, you see this? I'm dancing with other men's wives. It's not for you. And by hearing this, you'll become purified of the desire to do it. And that's how we understand it. So we're going to continue reading. This anubhava is described best by the feelings of the gopis during the night of the Rasa Leela dance, which by Krishna's Yogamaya potency was expanded to be as long as a kalpa, a night upon the planet of Lord Brahma. That's 1,000 cycles of the 4 ages. That's one day of Brahma. Nevertheless, to the gopis, the Rasa Leela seemed to end too quickly in less than even a moment. So, you've probably read this in the Krishna book. You're still scratching your head. Wait a minute. If it was actually a day of Brahma, then how could they, return home like 6 hours later? Keep scratching. Maybe someday you'll understand. But it actually, transcendental time, not within the mundane sphere. But to them, it just seemed like a moment. But the reason I put this quote here is just to show that Yoga Maya, she's everywhere. You know people who are like, they're everywhere into everything. They're like nosy, or they're just good managers, and they're like, everywhere in the office, they've got their finger on something. So Yogamaya is like that. She's everywhere. So she arranged this Rasa Leela would last one kalpa. But for the gopis, it seemed like just a moment. Isn't that amazing? Yugaitam nimeshena chakshusha pravishaitam. A yuga, a moment, feels like a yuga. That's Lord Chaitanya, right there. This is how the gopis felt. Lord Chaitanya is feeling like the gopis. A moment. It's like 12 years or more. But sometimes we say millions of years. But kalpa is, if we just give a day of Brahma, it's 4 billion. 4 billion 800. 4,832,000 years, something like that. 832 million. Yeah, and it's a long time. So a moment feels like millions of years. I have my song. Without you, Lord, a moment feels like a million years. 12 years or more, it's not so bad. At a million years, that's bad. So now, the guru, I'm not sure who's explaining, maybe Raghunath Das Babaji, or the guru is explaining. My own experience is this. When Krishna lived in Braja, so many calamities threatened to destroy it. Braja was disturbed by demons from Putana to Keshi, by demigods like Varuna and Indra, by creatures like the python, and by the falling of familiar things at Krishna's house, like the cart and the Arjuna trees. But to these dangers, the residents paid no regard. I thought this was really interesting. As you know, if you study Bhagavatam, and you think, what would it have been like to live in Vrindavan? Every day there's some mystic coming to try to kill Krishna or create havoc. And then Indra finally, tries to devastate. Vrindavan has so many problems. And, what was it like for the residents of Braja? Well, it's explained here. Let's read the commentary. This is from, I believe, could be from Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Brihad Bhagavatamrita elaborates on the Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami. The residents of Braja were simply happy to have Krishna in their midst. They did not care what dangers befell them due to Kamsa's seeing Krishna as an enemy to be destroyed. To kill Krishna and ruin Krishna's homeland, Kamsa sent many demons. Those mentioned in this verse and others like Kaliya, the serpent, who on Kamsa's order polluted the Jamuna with deadly poison. Besides the friends of Kamsa, Krishna had yet other adversaries, including powerful rulers of heaven. Nonetheless, the Brajbasis constantly thought only how to keep Krishna happy. Listen to this. They never considered protecting themselves from the attacks of the demigods or demons. As if entranced in each event, they wanted only to assure Krishna's welfare. They never thought of themselves. Isn't that interesting? Commentary. It was Krishna who entranced the residents of Braja, acting through his Yogamaya potency. He diverted them from paying attention to their own safety. At the same time, he completely protected them. Vaishnavas are supposed to cultivate the understanding that Krishna will protect them from all dangers. Rakshishati vishvashaha. That's one of the 6 items of surrender. Krishna will protect me. Raksha, protection. The Brajbasis, however, manifested the perfection of this surrender spontaneously without having to practice it. Of course, you have Krishna consciousness, you don't have to practice. You manifest all the items of surrender and purity and all the qualities of of a pure, a perfect being. So I put this in here because it shows that when we're under the influence of Yoga Maya, this is how we would relate to Krishna. We're always relating to his own safety. Like, sometimes it's happened that the deities were attacked and devotees were ready to give up their lives to protect the deities. It was spontaneous. That's Yoga Maya. Yes. Yeah. So, this is interesting because this rakshishati vishvaso means faith that Krishna will protect me. How far can that faith go? When does that faith become foolish? When does that faith become dangerous? That would be a question people would ask. Krishna will protect me. Does that mean I can jump out of the 100th floor of a building and Krishna will protect me? As Prabhupada said, it doesn't mean that you're challenging natural law. But vishvaso means faith. It means faith that if I execute my service, Krishna will protect me. If I jump out of the 100th floor, he could protect me. The wind could come and blow me into a window, blow me through the window of another floor. That could happen. If I give my life to Krishna, he'll look after me so that I can serve him. That's the idea. If I give my life to Krishna and I'm sincere, he will look after me so that I don't fall into Maya. He will protect me materially. He will protect me spiritually. If I give my life to Krishna, I don't have to worry about anything else. I give my life to Srila Prabhupada's mission. I don't have to worry about my liberation. I don't have to worry about anything. If I follow his instructions, everything will come from that. That is what faith means. I will be protected on every level. To the degree that Krishna chooses to protect me, when he decides to protect me, how he decides to protect me, that faith is there. But that faith should be there. But what's interesting is that the degree to which Krishna protects us often is proportionate to the degree with which we have faith. Yeyatamam prapadyante. So this yeyatamam prapadyante, such an important verse. Bhakti is reciprocal. So one may say, why didn't Krishna protect me? And we might say, because you were trying to protect yourself and you didn't have that faith. So Krishna was reciprocating. Krishna reciprocates, but why wasn't he reciprocating, protecting me? He was reciprocating with your lack of faith. You thought you could do it. And that, of course, is the example of Draupadi, who was trying to protect herself, and only at that point when she realized she couldn't and she gave up and called out, "Hey Govinda," did Govinda come. Now she's totally dependent on me. Now I will protect her. That's what we learn from that story. Why didn't Krishna protect her earlier? Why did he make her go through all of that? Well, it wasn't until she cried out in full faith that he protected her. So I think it's an important principle that sometimes we don't have faith. And because we don't have faith, Krishna doesn't reciprocate. And because Krishna doesn't reciprocate, we say, see, I put my faith and it didn't happen. No, you actually didn't put your faith. You put your faith in that it wouldn't happen. You put your faith in your doubt. And so Krishna said, well, you have faith in your doubt, so I'll reciprocate with your faith in your doubt. If you have faith in me, I will reciprocate with that. So sometimes we get sidetracked. Maybe that's the word. We sidetracked because we lack faith, which doesn't therefore allow Krishna to reciprocate with the faith because we lack it. And then We further lack faith because we didn't see reciprocation, but the reason there was no reciprocation is because we didn't put out enough faith for Krishna to reciprocate to. And then we think Krishna doesn't like me, or Krishna's promise is not true. Yetam mam prapadyante, his promise is always true, but you always have to see how he's reciprocating with you. Because sometimes we think, well, it's automatic, it should just happen. But it happens in relation to an individual. It doesn't happen the same for everyone. So that's important. So yeyatam mam prapadyante means it will happen differently for different devotees, according to their faith, according to their surrender. Krishna will always protect me. I can give myself to him. Like Prabhupada used to say, you work for an ordinary man, he'll pay you. So you don't think if you advertise, do the advertising for Krishna, promote him, he won't pay you? He won't take care of you? No, Prabhu, I don't think so. You have to take care of yourself. Even if you take care of yourself, you understand ultimately it's Krishna who's taking care of you. But when faith reaches a very high level, then one can just put their hands up in the air and say, Krishna, I'm yours. Whatever you want me to do, I will do. And have faith that he will protect you. I think it was Srivas. Srivas did not have a job. And Mahaprabhu said, how can you live without a job? And Srivas said, I'm doing seva 24/7, so Krishna, it's his job to maintain me. And if one day he doesn't maintain me, he doesn't provide food, then I will go to Ganga with my whole family and we will drown ourselves. Which obviously, because he was alive, hadn't happened yet. So he had that much faith. Well, I'm fully engaged in Krishna's service. If he doesn't want to take care of me, then I'll kill myself. There's no need to exist unless I can exist for his service. And Krishna maintained him. So that's a high level of faith, isn't it? Yeah. So I think this is a very important point. It's a vicious cycle, right? Krishna's not reciprocating. Well, he is reciprocating. He's reciprocating with, you don't have to ask to say, well, I prayed and this didn't happen. Well, maybe you were doubting that Krishna would give it. Have you ever prayed doubting that Krishna would give it? I think we all have. So Krishna's looking at you and say, well, you're praying for this, but you doubt me. Okay, so I'll reciprocate with your doubt. So when something doesn't happen, at least that may not be the only reason, but that's a place to look. Is it my lack of faith that's causing Krishna to reciprocate with my lack of faith, even though I think I have faith, and even though I think I'm doing the right thing, and even though I want something and it's not coming? So then you examine your faith. There is a mood of Krishna will protect me. There's another mood, Krishna, if you don't protect me, I'm giving up bhakti. Krishna, why aren't you protecting me? What's wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. There's that mood. So that's where the faith is lacking. And the mood, Krishna will protect me. Hands in the air. I know you will. I have faith in you. Krishna says, okay. This other story we told. And I'm not saying you can copy this, but at least we should tell the story. There is a man whose wife, he didn't have much money. He was like, kind of, sometimes a devotee gets such a taste for Krishna consciousness. It's really difficult to function in a 9-to-5 work environment. And so this devotee was apparently like that. He wasn't really providing well for the family, and it was time for his daughter to get married, and that was way more expensive than they could afford. So his wife sent him out to sell something. I forget what it was. She sent him out to raise the money. I think maybe she gave him some gold jewelry of hers and said, sell this. Anyway, he went out, and while he was on his way out, he heard there was a Bhagavatam Saptaha, 7-day recitation. And so he stopped to hear it, and he got so absorbed. He stayed there for days. And when it was finally over, he realized, oh my Govinda, the marriage is over. What a disaster. I missed the marriage. I didn't bring the money. When I go back, my wife's going to be waiting with a big stick, a big bamboo stick, to beat me. And he comes back, and everybody thanks him for sending the money for this amazing wedding that they were able to put on. He couldn't figure it out, and thinking about it, he realized that Krishna had taken care of everything. Krishna had, somehow or other, someone had come, given his wife the money, and so there is that level, but you can't imitate that level. And you have 5 children, and I hear this story. I have 5 children. I say, well, where's the nearest Bhagavat Saptaha? It sounds like a good business. I'll go there and listen, and all this money will come. It may not happen to you until you're on the same level as this devotee. But so, as I said, we don't necessarily use this as an example to follow, and then all your children end up starving if it doesn't work. But these examples are there to show that where there's intense faith, miracles happen. And then I think, one of the most amazing examples, which really, it shows that what a pure devotee can do, ordinary devotee can't do. And that was how Prahlad Maharaj was protected. And what especially interests me is how Hiranyakashipu, the original child abuser, who should have been locked up for abusing his child, but I guess they didn't have the CPO at that time to lock him up. Child Protection Office. He had put poison in Prahlad's dinner. And Prahlad offered that food. It became prasadam, and he took it as prasadam. And lo and behold, the poison didn't act. And the reason is because he had so much faith in the purity of prasadam. And that faith counteracted the effects of the poison. That is very interesting. And I'm waiting for some devotee to write a book on faith, because I think it's one of the, I don't feel qualified at this point, but I think it's one of the, this huge kind of gray area. Faith, what is it? And now, like the Bible says, faith can move mountains. How is it that faith could counteract the effect of poison? Faith that this is prasadam, it's pure, it's never contaminated. And if someone else ate that, didn't have that faith, they would be poisoned by it, maybe die. So when Prabhupada was questioned about it, he didn't advise us to try this. He said that that's not for you. It wouldn't work on you. It would work against you. So, but for the more evolved devotee who has absolute faith, it actually changes. It changed, I don't know if we want to say, if it changed the biological, chemical structure of the prasadam, or the prasadam, the poison evaporated, or when it hit his body because of his faith, Krishna protected him, or whatever. That I don't know. That's why, if I knew, I would have written the book already. But if anyone's interested in studying this topic, and I think we would have to study it in many ways, through science, through other traditions, through stories of faith. Actually, I was thinking, maybe I mentioned this before, writing a book called Stories of Faith. And I think it would be so important for our movement. Stories where Krishna protected, or Krishna helped devotees, or they put their faith in Krishna. They were able to succeed in ways that they normally wouldn't be able to. I think such a book would be fantastic. And then have the whole philosophy of faith and how it works. So, anyone interested? Go for it. It's. I mean, the book on stories of faith is just a matter of contacting devotees everywhere in the world and saying, "Do you have a story of faith? You know how Krishna protected you, or inspired you, or empowered you, helped you do something impossible like that." Okay, now I'm going to see if you have any questions or comments. Looks like you are feeling cold. Yes. You know why I'm feeling cold? Because it's cold. Because it's cold outside. Today's not so bad. Oh, it's 33 in Cape Town. Trying to make me feel bad, Sardi, aren't you? And now she's rubbing it in, salt on the wound. And you know we have great beaches. Yeah, I know you do. Yesterday, Shardia, I have to think in terms of Celsius. Yesterday, my daughter works at the school and she greets the children and takes their temperature when they come. I said, what was the weather yesterday? And she said it was 26 Fahrenheit. 26 Fahrenheit is probably like 2 or 3 degrees below zero in Florida. Wow. That even makes Saradi feel even better now, that she feels how cold it is here. South Africa's paradise. Such a beautiful place. Okay. I'm just going through. Yeah, so Christy was repeating this qualification. If you want to imitate Krishna, you have to first lift Govardhan Hill or an equivalent hill on your pinky for 7 days. Effortlessly. How about try this one also? Well, no, you shouldn't try this one, but steal the clothes of the most beautiful women in the universe and not be affected. Don't try that. You'll get in trouble. Mahatma Prabhu told me to do it. Go arrest him. Christe says, I keep scratching my head. Why did Krishna wait for the whole year before going to pick up his friends when Brahma abducted them? If he knew one moment in Brahma's time concept is that long. I don't understand your bewilderment. If he didn't wait for a year, it would have been like a nanosecond. So Brahma put the calves in the cave and the boys and like that. It's like, okay, what's Krishna going to do? And then all of a sudden, they're all there again. It's like, whoa. So that was a year, our time, but for him, it was just like he went away, came back a minute later, something like that. Otherwise, if you have to wait a year's time, then it would take 1,000 yugas. Is that what you're asking? Radha Kalachandji ki jai, Bhagavan Mishra ki jai. Nice to see you. Missing Kalachandji. Krishna Karshani says, you said that if a devotee gives life to Krishna, he protects him from fall down. We witness fall downs of devotees. Disciples of Srila Prabhupada gave their life to Krishna. Seems to be sincere, but fell down anyway. Why Krishna did not protect them? Well, it's the same. It's the same thing I think it's the same point with faith. And you say, well, why didn't Krishna give me what I prayed for? Maybe your faith was weak. Of course, maybe you weren't ready for it. That's also there. But we'll work off the idea that your faith was weak. So we understand that Krishna gives independence. So who will Krishna protect? Krishna will protect the one who wants to be protected, who prays for protection, who has that faith that Krishna will protect him, and who wants to remain pure. But the other side of that equation is if you want to fall into Maya, even Krishna can't protect you. He may try. He may create some situation in your life to make you realize you're doing the wrong thing. But still, if you insist, he won't interfere with that. Now, sometimes a devotee prays, Krishna, if I ever become stupid and run after Maya, please interfere. And so that's a different scenario. But sometimes when a devotee becomes weak, they actually want to be in Maya. They're looking for it. They're pursuing it. And so at that point, because that's what they want, Krishna says, okay, you need to go through this, go through it. But if that devotee every day was praying, Krishna, if I ever get bewildered, please protect me, then I would say he would be protected. Because ultimately, nobody's going to fall permanently away from Krishna unless they want to, unless it's a conscious effort that I just want to enjoy apart from Krishna. This is what I want to do. As my senses are beating me on the head. At the same time, sometimes the devotee does that, and immediately they come to their senses. That's Krishna's protection also. Krishna might think, well, maybe you have to do this to understand that this is not really what you want, and it's not going to make you happy. So I'm going to let you do it. So that can be there, and Krishna may have his reasons. I always took shelter of sincerity. I felt for myself, and for any devotee. If we're sincere, then Krishna will protect us. Please protect me when I become stupid. Please protect me from myself. If that's my desire, Krishna will do that. But if I, at some point in my devotional life, perhaps start offending Srila Prabhupada, offending other devotees, thinking ISKCON is finished or whatever, I start talking myself out of bhakti. And I'm showing Krishna that I'm not interested anymore. Then, okay, Krishna says, okay, whatever you want, you will get. If you don't want bhakti, I'm not going to give it to you if you don't want it. So, yeyatamam prapadyante. If you don't want Krishna, Krishna is not going to force himself on you. And so we have to understand Krishna's nature. He will force himself on you if you want him to. If you're praying for that, Krishna, if I ever do anything stupid, save me before I do it. Right? He will. And I'm sure we've all had experiences like that. But, there's this verse, Matir na Krishna parata satoba. You know this verse, Prahlad Maharaj. Grihavratanam verse. And the verse says, if one is determined to be in Maya, nobody, nothing can help them. They can't help themselves. Other people can't help them. Even God cannot help them. Of course, you could say God could help them, but he won't help them because they don't want it. So Krishna leaves that independence open to us. So I would say in conclusion to this answer, that if you want to be Krishna conscious, you will be protected always. But if ever there's a point where that desire wanes, and or the desire to not become Krishna conscious or to enjoy independently of Krishna becomes too strong, Krishna will say, okay, that's what you want, go for it. And then you can crash and burn, and hopefully that will bring you to your senses. That's also the way Krishna teaches. So maybe he won't get in the way because he also wants to teach you. That you have a lesson to learn. Is that okay, Krishna question? Marco says, to satisfy his devotees, the parents of the little gopas and the cows fed their children with an even more growing love, because Krishna himself, in the form of all those children and calves, tasted the rasa of parental love. Krishna is amazing and wonderful. Seymour. Because in the Leela, he simultaneously satisfies all his devotees in different ways, and he also derives transcendental enjoyment from these loving exchanges. Brahma was chastised and blessed with his mercy. Yeah, and Krishna, he's pretty smart, so he can accomplish a lot of things at the same time with ease. If a devotee grahasta, it's actually pronounced grasta, not grihasta, grahasta. If a devotee grahasta is struggling to maintain family with working, is neglecting their sadhana, and is weak in KC, is his lack of faith that Krishna will maintain him the cause of his struggling? Could be. Depends on the devotee. But if I had to bet my life on it, if I had to bet either yes or no, I would say yes. It is the problem. We work hard to maintain our families, but the consciousness is that Krishna will protect me. And the consciousness of compromising sadhana means that I doubt that I don't have time for sadhana. And I think, well, everything that's coming to me is coming by my own work. But not exactly. If Krishna is pleased, that's much better position to be in, don't you think? So I act in a way Krishna is pleased, everything good will come. But if I'm trying to get everything good by minimizing my sadhana, then I'm acting in a way that's not pleasing to Guru and Krishna, and I'm hoping to get an auspicious result. Don't try that. It doesn't work. Believe me, it doesn't work. The only thing that happens is you end up just working harder and harder, and as you work harder, sadhana suffers more and more, and you expand your material life more and more, and you need more and more money, and you work harder and harder. It's a vicious cycle. It's what Maya wants you to do. You work so hard, you have no time for sadhana. Even if you want to do sadhana, you don't have any time. It's not what Prabhupada taught us, for sure. Anuradha says, I think sometimes it is misunderstood when we talk about faith in the early stage of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes it may seem that we need to leave everything of our past lives, but after some time we realize we can use everything in Krishna's service. I think to ask to Krishna is not nice, but to give to him. Well, of course. But we ask Krishna for spiritual strength. Sometimes we ask Krishna for a facility for our service. Yes? We ask Krishna for Krishna's help, whatever we need help with. But the only reason we're asking is because it's for his service. So then it's okay. So that way you're asking for help is the same as saying, Krishna, what do you want me to do? He said, well, I want you to fly to Europe and do this. And you say, okay, Krishna, you have the ticket, the airline ticket? You're going to give me the airline ticket? Because I don't have one. Krishna says, yeah, here's the ticket. Now you can fly. Something like that. Now, Anuradha might say, well, why don't I just go out and get my own ticket? Well, if you can, then you don't have to ask for it. But let's say you couldn't, then you would ask for Krishna, I need the ticket to do your service. Can you help me? And the next day she goes on Sankirtan and he meets a guy. He said, I have this ticket to Europe I can't use. I'm looking for somebody. Do you know anyone who could use it? We can transfer it to that person. I just happen to know somebody. And you're looking at them right now. So sometimes things like that happen. Satyarupa says, looks like this Brahmana did not identify himself as the doer. I'm sure he would have been okay even if Krishna didn't provide for the marriage money. He would have been okay till his wife beat him in the head with the stick. But that is a fact. He was satisfied with whatever Krishna was sending. And so sometimes devotees will live that way. It answers the previous question, that they'll maintain their sadhana. So they won't compromise that. And they'll say, okay, so whatever time is left will work, and whatever Krishna sends, I will accept that. This Brahmana was very advanced, and he had a real taste for hearing and chanting. And he was satisfied with whatever Krishna sends. The problem is, that's a lot easier to do when you're single. But when you're married, you're responsible for other people. So you can't expect everyone to live as detached a life as you do. And that's where you get these sometimes problems in marriage where the man is like, the wife's going shopping to buy a bed, and he's like, why do you need a bed? I've slept on the floor for 30 years. Yeah. No, we need a bed, we're grihastas. And then, next day he comes home and there's a couch. It's like, why'd you buy a couch? I've been sitting on the floor for 30 years. No, we're grihastas. We need a couch. Etc., etc., etc. So then the husband has to think, okay, my wife needs these things. All right. Whatever. But personally, I don't really need them. But she needs them. The children need them. So he has to make that adjustment. Otherwise, it's true. This Brahmin didn't care. Sharadiya says or asks, with regards to our challenges in addressing internal issues, if we aren't proactively dealing with it, or them, the many of them, but believe it will be solved if we do our sadhana, how do we know whether we are acting in faith or falling prey to spiritual bypassing? Because it requires some intelligence. There's no money to pay the rent and they're going to repossess our house. Well, today I'll chant 64 rounds. That should do it. And then, I'm chanting 64 rounds, meditating on money. Prabhupada worked to maintain his family. His business was robbed by his employees. And he said, Krishna's mercy, he doesn't want me to do this anymore. So you have to have the intelligence. You have to have the intelligence to know the signs. Like what's the sign that I'm avoiding something, and what is the sign that I'm doing the right thing? So it requires some intelligence. But again, Sardiya, I would also say it would depend on faith. Because without the faith, something that should work may not work. And so you may have to do something else in recognition that I don't have the faith, therefore I'm doing this to solve this problem. Whereas if I were more advanced, that faith alone, with stronger faith, that faith would pull me through this situation. Krishna would help me. So it's really, it's really an internal question. And when Sardi says spiritual bypassing is a word coined by somebody, and I forget who. Maybe a Buddhist, to say that you run away from your problems, you don't face your problems because you just think, I'll chant my problems away. And some problems you can't chant away and you have to face them. So it's really a balance of being practical and being faithful at the same time. So your faith will not undermine your practicality, but your practicality will not undermine your faith. They have to work together. And you will see, as your faith increases, your world will change. Things will happen differently. Because it comes in the form of expectation. Like, Krishna will protect me. I know he will. Well, does that mean I just get in my car and point it west and go to sleep and, Krishna will drive the car? Well, that faith then becomes craziness. So we don't want faith in craziness. We want faith in intelligence. So I would say, in answer to your question, I would say increase your faith and act intelligently. And as you increase your faith, observe how things around you start changing. Things start happening. More things happen because you believe they can happen, because you're dependent on Krishna to make them happen, and you want them to happen. But I think your question is asking, well, what's the limit of what can happen? And that's something you'll have to see, because I think the limit of what can happen will be similar for all of us, but also individual as well, depending on our level of faith. Was that a too ambiguous an answer? Like, sometimes I can't answer questions exactly because I don't know the individual. Like you said, in this situation, ABC, if I just put my faith in Krishna and don't do anything, is that spiritual bypassing? Then I could say yes or no. So I'm just giving general guidelines. One of the items of surrender is that the belief, the faith that Krishna will always maintain me. Okay, I have the belief that Krishna will maintain me. Does that mean I don't look for a job? No, it doesn't mean that. Well, Prabhu, if I have faith that Krishna will maintain me, then I can just chant. Maybe that's true if your faith is very high, but if you need a place to live and you need food to eat, it might be a gamble. But if your faith is very deep and that's how you want to live, and you want to live on the edge, I'm not one to stop you, but you have to see the results. And of course, if you have a family, you can't put them in danger. So perhaps the best answer to your question is increase your faith and see what happens. You have ever been in a position, Sardi, or any of you, where you just had this intuitive faith? You're like, I don't have a job, I don't have money, or I need this, or I want to go to Vrindavan, and I don't know how I'm going to get there, or I really want to do this service, I really want to be in this temple, but I don't know how it's going to happen. And something happens that's out of the ordinary to make it possible. I told this story before, but it's interesting. And Krishna Karshani has her story, how she gets gifted all the time. She gets gifted tickets to India, money for this, money for that. Interesting also that she has a different relationship with Krishna. She doesn't pray to Krishna. She chastises him. Why aren't you giving me this? What's wrong with you? Then Krishna says, oh, don't chastise me. I'll give it to you. Yeah, she has a different rasa, a ghastly rasa. But one time I was in America, not one time, America, but one time while I was in America, I was invited to go to South Africa to help the preaching there. Which is an invitation, standing invitation that was like in my head, and it wasn't practical at the time I was invited. But the way situations were working out in America, I felt a need to get out of America. And so I wrote the devotee a letter saying, I'm ready to come. And I was a, temple devotee, so I had to get permission, and the GBCs had to agree, temple president, so on and so forth. So a little while later, I get a phone call from him, and he said, I talked to the GBC, and we've arranged for you to come to South Africa, Johannesburg. You can be the president there. So we really want you to come. And I said, oh, so you got my letter. And he said, what letter? It's like, okay. There is a God. And his name is Krishna. And he makes things happen. And we all have stories like that. So that's why I think this book on faith is important, because sometimes our faith becomes weak, doesn't it? So, stories of faith. You want to compile that book, Krishna Karshan? You just have to contact like 10,000 devotees, put messages out and say, can you tell me your top 3 stories of faith, if you have 3, or tell me the most amazing stories of faith of how Krishna, I was in this situation, this was going wrong, that was going wrong, I didn't know what to do, there was no way out, I couldn't go here, I couldn't go there, and then all of a sudden, this happened. Wow. And after each story, we'll say the mantra, wow, that's amazing. And read the next story. The next mantra, oh my Govinda, that's incredible. The next one will be, oh my God, I can't believe it. Those kinds of stories. So that would be, I would build our faith, wouldn't it? Tremendously. Love to have a book like that. So you can consider if you want to compile it. All you have to do is get the stories. People tell you the stories. Or you write them down. We send them to Satya Rupa. She spends the next 10 years editing them, and then we have the book. No, it won't take that long, Satya Rupa. Maybe a month. What a book. And you can have so many volumes. It's like chicken soup of the soul, we can call it. Khichdi soup for the soul, stories of faith. Stories of faith and bhakti. You know why this would be good, I think? Because there's so many people that think the Hare Krishnas are just a bunch of bogus religious fanatics, and they don't have anything. No philosophy. They don't know our philosophy. They just think we're crazy. And they think, oh, you worship this God, Krishna, some, dances with women. This isn't God. And then you have this book, Stories of Faith, and it's going to resonate with them. Say, well, these are the same stories we have in our tradition. Yeah. Well, you know why? It's the same God. Hello. It's the same God. We're also serving him. And that would prove to all these people who doubt that Krishna is God that he is. Otherwise, how could these things happen? They could try to write it off, but it would be difficult. This book would really serve that purpose well. You meet a Christian and say, would you do me a favor? I'll read your book. Would you do me a favor and read this book? This is about the lives of Hare Krishnas and how God has helped them. Would you read it and just see? Maybe after reading it, they'd realize that their religion is not the only religion. That people outside their religion can also be protected by God. So, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I think I've said what needs to be said. So Christy says, sorry for not being clear. I meant to ask, why would Krishna wait for the whole year and put that much effort to manifest in the forms of his friends and to keep the families the families were more than calm. They had Krishna as their son. Yeah. Krishna did it for the mothers and the cow mothers and the mother mothers, because they had Krishna for a year. So that was pretty nice. You'd like Krishna for a year? Be your son? That's why he did it. And Krishna knew Brahma is going to come back in a minute, so it all worked out. How do we know if we have genuine faith? And how can I improve it? Well, the definition in the Shastra given of faith is that you believe that if you give your life to Krishna, then everything you need will come from that, materially and spiritually. Doesn't mean you don't work, doesn't mean you don't get up in the morning, doesn't mean you don't try. But it means you don't need anything else. That Krishna will do everything. He'll give you all the intelligence you need. Somehow or other, he'll you'll live, everything will work out. So one way of increasing that faith is to associate with people who have more faith. Another way of increasing that faith is to hear stories that demonstrate this faith. And the last way of increasing this faith is to actually put yourself out on the edge, to see how Krishna takes care of you, because then you gain faith. When it's like I was saying in the beginning, when you don't have faith, it breeds a lack of faith, because you're not willing to put yourself out. And if you're not willing to put yourself out, then how are you going to experience that increased faith? Let's say, Krishna Kanta, you had to do something. And you said to me, they've asked me to do this, but I don't feel qualified. And I'm quite nervous that I could not do it well. And I would, we would discuss it. And we decide that it's just a lack of faith on your part. Krishna will help you if you put your faith in him. He will give you guidance, and you can do it. And so we agree, yes, that's right. Then you go out and do it. And then you experience that it's true. Krishna did give you the help that you needed. The intelligence, the energy, the enthusiasm. Build your faith. So oftentimes, faith building is simply a process of putting your faith or stretching your faith. So you allow Krishna to step in and show you that he's there. And then the opposite is true. When you don't stretch it, then he doesn't have the opportunity to show you that he's there. Then your faith can decrease. But there's also another area of faith where we lack, and that's the faith that I can become Krishna conscious. So now, you may lack that faith because you're not executing bhakti properly. That could be there. But if I execute bhakti properly, then Srila Prabhupada has promised we'll become Krishna conscious. So we have at least faith in his words, right? You may not have faith in yourself that you can properly follow, but at least you shouldn't doubt the fact that if you did properly follow, you would become Krishna conscious and you would go back to Godhead. That faith we should have. So, sometimes we think, well, I'll never be Krishna conscious. That could stem from a lack of faith. And if I have faith in the process and I execute it, then in that sense I don't have the right to say I can't be Krishna conscious, because that contradicts what our Shastras teach and it contradicts what Prabhupada said. So then that means you lack faith in what Prabhupada said, because you're saying, I don't think I can ever be Krishna conscious in this life. Well, at least acknowledge I could be if I take to the process properly. Sometimes we feel exclusively fallen, like there's no one as fallen as I am. But Prabhupada never made that discrimination when he said, chant 16 rounds, follow the principles. And if you're not exclusively fallen, it'll work on you. And if you are exclusively and uniquely messed up, then all I can say is, I don't know what'll happen to you. He never said that. We say those things. That's a lack of faith. Krishna Kanta, Gopalini, Devidasi, we sometimes have faith in our lack of faith. Isn't it? Oh, I could never be Krishna conscious. That's where my faith is. I could never be Krishna conscious. There's no way. I'm not going back to Godhead in this lifetime. So I have faith in my lack of faith. I have faith in my handicaps. I have faith in my inabilities. That's not good. So sometimes you have to check your faith. And you look at what you're thinking, look at what you're saying. The other thing is, to understand, which we really didn't touch on well enough, but where you place your faith is where you're going. So if you doubt, you can become Krishna conscious. You may have your reasons. Well, look at my life and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's looking at it materially. So if you doubt it, then we go in the direction of our faith. So wherever our faith is, that's where we end up. So I could never go back to Godhead in this lifetime. You are absolutely right. You never could. And you won't, because that's what your faith is. You've already charted out your course of where you're going. I'm not going back to Godhead. Even though you could if you followed, but you don't have faith. So you've already surrendered to the idea. And I think part of that, it seems to me, part of that surrender to the idea is I've surrendered to the idea that I'm not going to even try to perfect my sadhana and bhakti. So I could go back to Godhead. I've already resigned myself to the fact that in this life I can't and I won't. So that's where your faith lies. Your faith lies in taking another birth. Your faith lies in not perfecting your Krishna consciousness in this life. You don't think you can do it. I never heard Prabhupada say you can't. So now you're putting faith in your own lack of faith. Right? You ever do that? I have lots of faith. What is your faith in? All the things I have no faith in. That's what I have faith in. Yeah. So not good. So Ida Yoga says, thank you so much for sharing your time, insights. I am very grateful. Most humble dandavats. Ishvari Janavi Devidasi from Sarajevo, Bosnia. Oh, nice to have you with us. Sadhyarupa says, I recently read this Leela. It was mentioned Krishna created Maya, cowherd boys, for Brahma to take away. Yeah, of course. Because Brahma can't take away the real ones. But anyway, at least we know that Krishna became them. You know, Krishna's pastimes are multidimensional. But, you know, Brahma in that mood, you know, doesn't really have access to the real cowherd boys. So Krishna created some other cowherd boys to look like those boys, so they could be hiding. Maybe a topic for a video. Have faith with intelligence. Okay, I don't have anywhere to write that down, or do I? Have faith with intelligence. Okay, that's a good one. Oh, I hanker for that day when we'll have the book, Stories of Faith. Because I think that book could be one of the most powerful books. Don't you agree? You know, whenever you're lacking faith, you read all these stories, and there it is right in front of you in black and white. This actually happened in the modern world. It's not some story of Bhagavatam that you think, oh, Krishna just arranged that, put it in the Bhagavatam, you know, try to give us faith. But this story happened right around the corner, you know, last year. And you're reading it, and it could have happened to you. So if any of you are interested in, we just have to get it out there, you know, ask disciples, ask their gurus, do you have any stories? Ask devotees, to ask devotees, to ask devotee, do you have any stories? You know, give me your 1 or 2 or 3 best faith stories. And then we can kind of compile it by chapters, similar chapters. Chickpea soup for the soul. Stories of faith and bhakti. How's that sound? Chickpea soup. You know, I have this big series of books called Chicken Soup for the Soul, because chicken soup, when someone in America, when someone gets sick, they say the panacea, the cure-all is chicken soup. So we don't eat chicken. We eat chickpeas, though. Could make chickpeas taste like chicken, maybe. I don't know if you'd want to do that. I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to remember the taste. But chickpea soup for the soul. Stories of faith and bhakti. Wow. When you were talking, so Abhay Krishna says, when you were talking about faith, I remembered a news I saw on TV a while ago. A person in Vrindavan climbed on top of Prem Mandir. He said that he'll jump and that Krishna will protect him. So he jumped and broke his leg, but he still lived. Wow. What was he smoking that day? So in a way, Krishna did protect him. Don't try this at home, ladies and gentlemen, unless you have. If you're going to do that, you should have a lot of faith. Right? So Anandita is capturing some words I said that she liked. We'll read this. Sometimes we feel exclusively fallen. But Prabhupada never made that discrimination that the process will not work on us. Can you send that to me, Anandita? Yeah, it's a really big topic of how we feel and how Prabhupada feels about us. How I feel about myself and how Prabhupada feels about me. And sometimes we're in two different worlds. Like, Prabhupada's saying, you can be Krishna conscious in this lifetime and go back to Godhead. And we're saying, I can never be Krishna conscious in this lifetime and go back to Godhead. So we have two different things going on. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble. We have a lot of problems. Because, and even, let's say, even I didn't believe that. I'm not very Krishna conscious. I don't believe I can. But Prabhupada does. Prabhupada says it. So shouldn't I at least believe what Prabhupada says, that I can? Okay, I can be Krishna conscious. I don't know if I'll execute it well enough to be Krishna conscious completely in this life, but I can. It's possible. It's potential. So I think it's very helpful for all of us to be aligned with what Prabhupada is thinking. And if I'm thinking something, even if it seems real to me, but it's not how Prabhupada is thinking about me, then which way should I choose to think? I should choose to think as Prabhupada sees me, not as I see myself. If I see myself in a disempowering way, it's not going to help. Prabhupada was always empowering us. So the way he was seeing us was always encouraging. You can do it, you can do it. But, I was born here and I did that. Get out there and do it. You can do it. That was Prabhupada's mood. So that being his mood, we should adopt it, shouldn't we? Rather than some way of seeing ourselves that hurts us, makes it difficult for us, makes us unhappy. Doesn't make sense. Have you ever made yourself unhappy? Let me guess. Is the answer yes? Did I get it right? I did get it right. Oh, how did I know you've done that? I just took a guess. Wild guess, yeah. So, we're thinking some thought like, I can't be Krishna conscious. I'll never be Krishna conscious. I'm the most fallen entity that ever set foot on planet Earth. Probably the most fallen in the universe, etc., etc. Right? Okay, now, back it up. I need you to back it up. What did Prabhupada say about you being like that, or any of us being like that? Or he might say, yeah, we're the most fallen. But then what was the next sentence? But you have Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and you can get love of God in this lifetime. So, don't just go with the first half of the sentence. You got to add the second half. So I think a lot of us just stick on the first half, and we don't add the second half. And when I see that, it's one of the things that really concerns me. There are certain things that really concern me, not a ton, but this is one of them, that we're thinking in ways that are completely opposed to the way Prabhupada has taught us to think. And how can you be Krishna conscious if that's the way you think? Now, I know our minds think that way, but my whole point is we want to think the way Prabhupada thinks, not the way our conditioned mind thinks. And so it's a great way to overcome your mind, because you can think, okay, I'm thinking like this. This is driving me crazy. It's not helping me. It's making me depressed or whatever. In whatever way it's harming me. What did Prabhupada say about this? How did Prabhupada suggest to see this situation? What did Prabhupada say that I should think about this? Then you go to that. That will cure you instantaneously, because Prabhupada will not teach you to think in a way that is going to disturb you, depress you, discourage you, handicap you, or make you in some way incapable of going forward in Krishna consciousness. He'll do the opposite. So it's sort of an important point. And if I ever hear you saying something like, I'm so this, I can't do this, I can't do that, nobody's as fallen as I am, like now you know how I feel when you say those things. I feel like, what is wrong with you? Haven't you read Prabhupada's books? He never said those things. Why are you saying them? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Here, the pure devotee comes to help you control your mind, control your life. And now you're speaking the same old stuff. You should be speaking what he said. All right. I may feel I'm the most fallen I can ever be Krishna conscious, but I have to speak and I have to think according to what he said. I feel this way, but Prabhupada said, in this life you can be Krishna conscious. That's what he said. So that's what I believe. That's where my faith is. That's where my heart is. So, if Prabhupada says something and you put your faith in your own subjective experience, yeah, he says that, but, I'm just never, me become Krishna conscious this life? Are you kidding me? That's never going to happen. No, we don't want to speak that way. Prabhupada said it can happen, and that's where the faith is, that it can happen. Not the faith that I have faith in my lack of faith in what Prabhupada said. That's the problem. Write that one down, Anandita. And send it to me. I have faith in my lack of faith. I have faith in my lack of faith in what Prabhupada said. That's where the problem lies. And then you can, Anandita, you can just explain a few things that I just explained now about putting our faith in our own ideas which contradict what Prabhupada told us. That's a problem. And if you want to make me really unhappy, now you know how to do it. Just tell me something that Prabhupada didn't say. Tell me something you feel, you're thinking, you're experiencing in your life, and all the conclusions that surround it that entirely contradict everything Srila Prabhupada said about that. Now you know how to make me miserable. Just tell me something like that, and I'll be like, ah! Like, if a non-devotee feels like, I don't need faith in God or whatever, okay, I understand. But if a devotee lacks faith in the very things that Prabhupada said, that is a moment for me. You ever have one of those moments? Like, you can't say that. That's wrong. Yeah. Now you know, everyone. Now you know how to freak me out. Just do that. So, John of Maine. We have Tom's of Maine and we have John of Maine. Says, it's so helpful to hear about faith this morning. Sometimes it is just hanging on to words or Prabhupada's cloak, your teaching and other experienced devotees. Yeah. Sometimes because you don't know. And you have to hang on to those words. And those words are like, they're going to tell you something like, hey, this doesn't make sense. But you have faith. That's another definition of faith, Krishna Kanta. You trust in something that you have no experience of. You trust in something you can't see to be true. And there are things that we will never understand if we don't have faith, because if we lack faith, then we'll only try to understand them through material faculties. So faith gets you beyond the limitations of your mind and senses in understanding something, because Krishna reveals through the heart of the faithful devotee. So let's say my mind and intelligence can't understand it, but Krishna can put that in my heart if I have faith. Krishna Karshani says, I remember when all those amazing stories happened to me, that without even asking Krishna, Krishna gave me so many things. You told me, I hope that you will have faith that Krishna will always help you and support you. Yes, my faith increased after that. Okay, some of you may say, Krishna, can you make something happen in my life, like a faith-building thing? Oh, Krishna Karshini's inspired. Wow, you're the best one to do it. Because you're a very social person, you like to contact people, and you've done books. If you could do this book, and anyone want to help Krishna Karshini gather stories, we'll need a whole crew. This book, I'm telling you, this book is going to help so many devotees. It's going to be revolutionary, I think. I don't know, I just have a very strong feeling. People are going to read this book and they're going to say, this book changed my life. This book increased my faith 100 times. Chickpea soup for the soul. We're going to have a whole series. There's all kinds of chicken soup for the soul books. I think Chicken Soup for the Soul was actually sold more than the Bible, or it was up there with the Bible. One of the best-selling books ever. It took Jack Canfield 133 different publishers, visiting 133 publishers before some publisher would do it, and it turned out to be one of the biggest books because it's so inspiring. Christe says it could be presented even in the format similar to the Bond of Love as individual stories. But 10,000 stories wouldn't fit in such a format. And that book is already 600. Yeah, so we have volumes. Just have volumes. If volume 1, if people like it, we'll just make it into volumes. But I'd like to do it by category, maybe. John says, I think of Prabhupada's faith coming to America. Yeah, it's like, if you want an example of anything that you need to do in Krishna consciousness, well, you turn to Prabhupada and it's there. It's like, you want an example of faith, as John says, get on a boat and go to America in 1965 with rupees that you can't even cash in America, in one contact. You want to become fearless? Get on a boat. And not you get on the boat. Think of Prabhupada on the boat. Yeah. It's just like, go down the list. Sense control, compassion, any quality you want to develop. This Prabhupada he's manifesting it in his Leelas to inspire us. Yeah. Thanks for reminding us. Sadhupa says, Madhuri Radhika was also inspired to help collect stories for this book. Fantastic. So whoever wants to help should contact Krishna Karshini. Krishna Karshini, can you put your email address? And then I think the main two things we're going to need initially is devotees to get stories, and they can be recorded, and then we're going to need transcribers, which would be such a amazing service to transcribe all these amazing stories. I'd be so happy if we could pull this off, because I know this book will help many devotees. So Deepak says, a Gujarati devotee, Nashe Mehta, got lost in bhajans, and he forgot it was his daughter's marriage. Krishna performed the ceremony as Nardashi. When he got home, he realized, Lord did. Krishna took him. Yeah, that's the story. Yeah, it's an amazing story, right? Tanya says, very nice song by the Christian singer Lauren Dagle. You say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I'm strong when I think I'm weak. And you say I'm held when I'm falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say I'm yours, and I believe, oh, I believe what you say of me. Perfect. Because a lot of times we experience with Prabhupada that he had more faith in us than we do, or you may experience your spiritual master has more faith in you than you do. So that's one point. The other point is that often we are being helped, but we don't recognize it. We are being held and we don't recognize it. So sometimes we need to open our eyes and recognize it. I like that song. So Deepak is saying, I'm talking about Narshi Mehta. Krishna took him to Goloka and back to earth. I didn't know his name. Krishna says, you reminded me what Prabhupada once said. If Krishna has recognized you, nice spiritual master, what else do you want? What, if Krishna has recognized you? If Krishna has given you a nice spiritual master? If Krishna has recognized you and sent you a nice spiritual master, what else do you want? Yeah. I want to transcribe. Okay, we've got a team going. Everyone start getting stories. All of you can do this. All of you. If you can get stories, just send them to Krishna Karshini. Note down her address. There's so many stories like this. Like so many. It's amazing. Edith says, if the project kicks off, I would be happy to help collect stories from the Balkans. Yeah, go for it. As well as I have close Bhakti friends there. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj is also my Shiksha guru. Yeah. I can propose it more. Yeah, please. Reach out to devotees. I could record interviews also. Do it. Yeah, and I should write also. I'll write devotees, gurus. I think I'll write a letter. And you can send people like why it's important. And you could use that if you want. Once on a Japawaka Mayapur, I said, jump over this ditch and have faith. Everything will be okay. There's a big ditch. We saw a ditch, and I said, that's like faith in Krishna. Okay. So, if you want to join us for japa, it's in 1 hour and 13 minutes. And I want to see anything else is going on today. Oh. Only japa today. A meeting with European disciples tomorrow at 11 a.m. on my Zoom account. You should have gotten that ad. If you haven't gotten that ad, contact Jai Radhe. Jai Radhe is Jenny Yu. I'm going to write her name. She knows about it. I think her email is at Hotmail. Let me just check. She knows about that meeting. So if you weren't invited, it's just for disciples, aspiring disciples. Jenny Yu at Hotmail. Oh, minor details here. Good thing I checked. .co.uk. I will copy it and paste it. She knows about that meeting tomorrow. If you speak English, you're invited to the meeting. If you don't speak English, there'll be another meeting for you somewhere. Okay, here's her email. If you're in Europe and you weren't invited, for some reason we didn't have you on the list, write her and she'll give you the details. And her email is there. Whoops. I did it wrong. Wait a minute. Forget that. I copied it wrong. Don't copy that. I copied 2 emails at once. It appears. Let's try it again. There we go. There it is. Actually, if you are in Europe and you speak English and you didn't get an email from her about this meeting, just send me an email to let me know, because we want to figure out why you didn't get notified. Okay. And that's on Saturday. Saturday night, we have our class in Chinese. Sunday, Amsterdam, Sunday feast, 10 o'clock my time. We're doing a lecture on something about something about some area of community building and working together. I forget the specifics. It'll be interesting if you're able to come. Okay, Hare Krishna to everyone. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.